Many believe that in 2018 and 2019, that was the peak of the automobile industry. COVID happened, chip shortages, nothing's been the same since, and people just can't afford cars at the level that they used to and the masses that they used to. Automarket is expected to be down in 2026 in the United States and probably globally as well, but that doesn't stop Toyota. Toyota just set an all-time sales record. They're playing by their own rules. They're playing their own game. They don't care what anyone else is doing. Toyota is on another level. If you guys are a car industry nerd, I cover sales quite often on the channel, mostly as it pertains to the United States market. But Toyota just released their total 2025 sales per region as well, and even production stuff. So if you guys are excited, hit the like button. We're also going to talk about LEXUS because we have global LEXUS sales results, and big surprise, they also set an all-time record for sales in a single year. So if you guys are excited, hit that like button. This comes out right when BYD has posted that they have slid 5 consecutive months as the market in China destabilizes a little bit. This is just bonkers. You would think that the old guard would slowly come down. And in fact, it has. It's just not Toyota. The old guard, Nissan, Honda, the Detroit Big Three. You look at Volkswagen, they're all shrinking. Slow deaths. I'm not saying it's like permanent deaths, but like the death of their former ego. Because while the Chinese automakers are eating up market share around the world. Now, Toyota's market share, it's a little bit more fluid in certain areas than others, but they are still just playing by their own game. They own the market. The auto market is Toyota's. No one else has come close to mastering the consumer demand and mastering what the market really, really wants and providing product that satiates the market. All right, so Toyota worldwide sales, this dot means this is an all-time record. And it's not sales inside of Japan, not close. Even though it was up, they were up, but the worldwide sales outside of Japan is what's keeping Toyota just firing on all cylinders. In North America, sales in December were up 9% for Toyota. The United States, 10%. Canada down 11%. And Mexico up 18%. Mexico's a battleground market where the Chinese automakers are owning the EV end of the market down there for sure. Sales were up year on year due to recovery from last year's production stoppage caused by the recalls of the TX and Grand Highlander, as well as continued strong performance of hybrids, which that's only going to continue with the new RAV4 going fully hybrid. Now, if we look at the 2025 accumulation, that's pretty much exactly what they still said. So the North American market is just humming along, up 9% for December and up 7% all of 2025. Latin America down 3.5%. That includes, Brazil, there was a massive fire at one of the Brazilian plants. And the Chinese are also doing major work down in Brazil. Okay. Argentina minus 42%. Again, that big fire, that plant fire affected Toyota enormously down there. I don't know if necessarily it was a fire. It was like some sort of natural disaster where like almost like a tornado ripped through it or something like that. Just crazy. Europe is falling. I just saw that. I think it was France's market is down 6% or was down 6 to 7%. In Europe, though, Toyota's still kind of hanging on. It was down 1% in December. It was up 1% on the year. Said it just, demand is steady overall there. Now, the UK saw a major drop. France saw an increase. So Toyota's outperforming the French market. Okay, Italy down 1 to 2%. Germany down 25%. That's crazy because Germany is a huge market. It's definitely not Toyota's biggest market in Europe. It's a hard market to succeed in due to the strength of the German automakers and other reasons. But overall, it really does look like France is the strongest single market for Toyota, followed then by Italy. Surprising, there's a lot of Italian automakers. Okay, followed then by UK. Then, actually, Spain is better selling than UK. That's crazy. And then Germany kind of far down the list. So Toyota, though, succeeding quite well in the Spanish market, the French market, and still holding on well in the Italian market. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving in Asia. Well, they're down 12.8% in China in the month of December, but overall they were up 0.2%. That's crazy to be up in China when BYD has seen 5 consecutive months of declines. Toyota, yes, this is also a decline for them. They're not growing there. Well, I should say the trends are saying that they're probably not going to grow there anymore, even though they had a slightly positive year. So they say sales decline year on year due to increase in customers expecting new policy measures. That was for December. And in China, overall for the year, fierce competition, sales exceeded, though, the previous year's level thanks to strong performance of the BZ3X and BZ5 BEVs, as well as hybrids and successful promotional campaigns. Now, India is the biggest growth market in the world. Okay, they say sales exceeded last year's level, driven by continued strong performance of core models such as the Urban Cruiser Highrider and Innova Hi-Cross, along with the positive impact of reductions in variable or various automotive-related taxes. Okay, so if we look at Indonesia, though, Indonesia down 12%, Thailand up 4%, Philippines up 5%, Taiwan down 2%, Malaysia, a really big market, still over 100,000 units last year, about neutral. We look at Pakistan up about 60%. Pakistan's growing a lot. That doesn't really come as a surprise with its proximity to India. Vietnam up 9%. Korea even up 4%. Korea is still a tiny market with, the Korean automakers there being the prolific models or the Europeans for the luxury end oftentimes. All right, India up 17%. Look where India is, guys. Look at where India has risen to, and it's just a beginning. India outsells Canada by about 100,000 units now. India will continue to grow, but India is now the third largest market for Toyota. Okay, United States, they sold 2.5 mil, China 1.7 mil, and then it's a massive drop off for individual markets after that. Okay, it then goes India, and then you have like 250,000 Australia. Well, sorry, you have Indonesia 260, then Australia at 254, then you have Canada at 249. And then you go to Thailand and then Philippines. And then from there, it's quite big drop-offs. Crazy. Toyota up in Asia is nuts when all the Japanese automakers are really, really struggling in Asia. Okay, North America up 7% for Toyota. It's just bonkers. Okay, how well they're doing in just about every conceivable market, even Europe being up. That is crazy. Now, production outside of Japan for all of 2025 was also an all-time record. Not a surprise when the sales were an all-time record. So let's move on to Lexus global sales results for 2025. They're up 4%, okay, then over last 2024's numbers. And they sold 882,000 units. Lexus could have the ability, I would be surprised, honestly. I would be surprised if I saw my lifetime Lexus crack 1 million units. It all depends on China and how successful they can be there. Okay, they're building a new battery electric plant just for the Chinese market. I think that's in Shanghai. And depending on the success of that, Lexus may be able to crack 1 million units, but I just don't see it happening. It's such a high number. So we look at North America, they're up about 8% versus a previous year off of the TX, NX, RX, especially the TX. Central and South America, they were up about 14%. They only sold about 4,500 units in Central and South America. It's crazy how little of an impact Lexus has on Latin America. That is bonkers. Can't believe how small it is. All right, because Toyota has a fairly large, if we go back to the Toyota's numbers here, they sold 472,000 Toyotas in Latin America and only 4,600 Lexus. Very, very, it's like 1% of Toyota's sales. 1% of Toyota's sales in Latin America are Lexus. All right, Asia, about neutral. China, neutral. East Asia up 3%. And you just look at the strength of the Chinese market here. 182,000 units. North America, Lexus was like 370,000 to 375,000, something like that last year in the United States. China is about half of the United States market, but China still has room to grow. They've just kind of capped out there due to the lack of EVs. Lexus doesn't have like a joint venture over there. They import all their cars, I think for the most part, from Japan for the Chinese market. And once they have their own EV hub there, it's going to change their trajectory for the better. Okay, they're just kind of capped out where they're at right now. Okay, Oceania, up 7% for Lexus. Japan, actually up 2%. And Europe, this is the only market that's struggling for Lexus. Europe down 2 to 3% here. And, well, I think it's just European market in general. I know Toyota's doing somewhat okay there. The European market was down in December for Toyota and up just 1% on the year. Europe is a tough cookie. And if it wasn't for, was it Spain having such a good year, Europe may have been a big loss for Toyota. Now, outside of these major countries, Toyota's doing insanely well in Europe, okay, up about 5%. So between Spain and the rest of Europe, Toyota is crushing it. But France, UK, Italy, and Germany, those are just really, really struggling markets right now, which is not a good sign for Europe. Not a good sign for Europe in general, not just for Toyota in Europe, for everybody in Europe. It's not looking good going into 2026. So really, Toyota's just cruising and Lexus is just cruising in every market other than Europe, it seems like at this point. Where will it lead in 2026? Are they going to set another sales record? I would say, I don't know if they care to. Their profit margins is still really good despite the global tariff situation. I think they're safer than any other automaker in the world. There's no one that comes close to Toyota's longevity, close to Toyota's product stack, and just meeting the customer with good product that the customer wants and is asking for. You look at in America, their day supply for Toyota and Lexus, it's like half of the average, and they bring the average down massively. Okay, so Toyota and Lexus are still operating they're playing their own game. For how long can they do this? I don't know, but most of the other manufacturers are really struggling with tariffs, with having good product for that specific market. Just about everybody's struggling with product right now. We look at Volkswagen in America, they have no hybrids. You look at like Honda, they don't have any large platform hybrids. Hyundai is the only manufacturer, I would say, that is, well, a potential thorn in Toyota's side. They're the only manufacturer, in my opinion, that can really keep up with Toyota on the global market in every single market. Hyundai, I take that back because Hyundai doesn't really have much of a foothold in China and they don't care to. But Hyundai is giving up with the Santa Cruz. The Santa Cruz will always be memorable to me because it was my first Hyundai press event. It was like, okay, this thing's funky. And we all asked at the launch event, like, okay, when is this thing going to get a hybrid? And never got a hybrid to directly compete with the Maverick. Its styling is a little too polarized as well for the truck community. Okay. And this lifestyle sort of vehicle just the styling wasn't what it needed to be, even though it got better, right? With this refresh, got more blocky, but the powertrain wasn't what it needed to be with the hybrid. It didn't offer enough unique qualities, like no midgate, no extending tailgate. No, like it didn't have a lot of great ideas. Okay. It was just like a Me Too sort of car in a segment that often will just buy body and frame instead. I know you might be saying, correct, that's a different segment, but price wise, just go get a body on frame midsize pickup truck. And then you can, really modify it if you want to, or really use it for heavy off-duty usage. All right, Maverick outsold the Santa Cruz 6-1 in 2025. And Hyundai dealerships had 5 months worth of stock. That's about 150 days worth of stock. It's definitely one of the worst selling vehicles, if not their worst selling vehicle for Hyundai. At the end of this decade, Hyundai and Kia will have body on frame trucks. That's what this article is letting us know. To a slightly larger pickup to fight the Tacoma, the Ranger, the Colorado. But the GOAT in this segment, in my opinion, is the Nissan Frontier. And they could have their own Xterra / 4Runner variant based off of that body on frame platform. So I can't wait. I mean, Hyundai having a real truck in America. I know Kia has the Tasman in other markets, but it's going to be a game changer, and it's going to give the truck market in America what they're asking for. If they can bring a hybrid truck too, that'd be cool. But obviously wouldn't be as a fuel efficient as something like the Ford Maverick, which is like a Ford Escape with a bed. All right, Hyundai Motor reports bigger than expected profit fall. Okay, I know it's tricky titling here. They just say like reports bigger losses than expected in Q4, but they're expecting higher profit margin in 2026 and higher sales with increased shipments. Now, this is on the backs of Trump raising tariffs on South Korea. Now, guys, tariffs, I can't keep up with it. Every day it's something different. So Trump just raised the tariffs back to 25%. It was at 15%. He says they're not following through on what he expects them to, and tariffs have gone back up. So unless the tariffs go back down to 15%, Hyundai's going to have a massive problem on their hands with the exports from Korea. In the last quarter, the fourth quarter, they had a 40% fall in operating profit because of tariffs. This is how they want to make more money, increasing sales of higher end models. For how long will the auto market be able to continue to pay these outrageous prices? For how long? Okay, the boomers have to keep the market alive by themselves. They're essentially doing it. I don't have demographics in front of me, but without the boomers being able to afford at a rate that no other demographic can come close to, like what's going to happen when in the next 5 to 10 years, all the boomers are gone? All right, or the most of them, especially the ones buying cars. All right, what's going to happen to the car market? What's going to happen to the housing market? What's going to happen when 50% of the wealth in America is no longer living? Okay, where does that wealth go? Are they going to run through it all? I don't know. Like how long can higher end models sustain the market? Okay, I don't see this ending well for Hyundai. We look at the day supply. We go back to Cox Automotive here. The day supply fell off a cliff so that the manufacturers don't have to incentivize these cars very much. It was like 90 the month before. Okay, and so you have the day supply right here, and Toyota and Lexus on a different level. And a lot of them have been focusing on high profit margin vehicles, okay, to keep them afloat, even though they're mass market cars, like Ford in their trucks, for example, Jeep in their Jeeps. Jeeps are very, very expensive. All right. And their day supply is showing that people are not interested anymore at Jeep's high prices. Now, there are other automakers that fell below the average here that survive on really high profit margin vehicles. Cadillac, Porsche, BMW, Lexus is in there, right? I feel like there's going to be a contracting of the market in terms of luxury players, which ones are going to succeed, or just like a massive contraction in even available luxury cars, because all the profit margins sit in just a few segments. Okay, all the sedans are pretty much very good anymore because they haven't been updated or they've been killed off in the luxury segment by a lot of the companies. On the mass market end, for how long can they, I know Hyundai saying, more high profit margin vehicles, higher ticket item vehicles, but for how long, guys? The market's price average right now is $50,000. For how long is this sustainable? I don't think it can continue on much longer. In 2026, we could see some fragmenting of the market, and you're going to see this graph continue to get ridiculous. You can see less manufacturers sinking down way down here. Okay. Only Toyota and Lexus really can maintain this, Honda to a lesser degree. And then you have all these other manufacturers just piling up with 100+ day supply. Okay, I know that the December day supply got lower, but the big reason of that is the manufacturers are reducing their output because they don't want to have to pay incentives. They're like, okay, well, let's just make more high profit margin vehicles, less volume. That's how we're going to protect our margins. That could be a short-term win. That might work. While the boomers are still around, have a lot of money, that's not going to work long-term. Because if you want the industry to be as big as it is or has been for the last, decade, you need to continue to sell at the volume where mass market or the masses will be able to afford it. Okay. And what is that? What is the average transaction price? Because what's happening right now is even the more affordable models around $40,000 are not really affordable. And only a few manufacturers are buying only a few manufacturers are successful selling around $40,000. Subaru, for example, I think Subaru is one of them. And Honda is the other one, having a lot of success selling under $40,000. All the other manufacturers are trying to sell as many high profit margin vehicles and high ticket item vehicles as possible. And Toyota, whatever they price their vehicles at, it doesn't matter. They're selling them in every market around the world, even in struggling Europe right now. Will Hyundai's strategy, as well as it's like the strategy of everyone out there, of continuing to increasing the price and selling more higher end models, is that really what's going to happen in 2026? Are they really going to be able to boost his profit margin? I'm not buying it. Not buying it with the volatility of tariffs. People just like not being able to afford cars. And the manufacturers will be okay, in a shrinking market because they're just going to contain. It's just like it's a death spiral though. Okay, it's a death spiral. It's like, okay, well, we need to protect our margins, so let's just focus on high margin vehicles. And as a result, they just diminish the available cars that are actually affordable to the masses. What is affordable to the masses anymore? A $40,000 car with an 8% finance rate? Forget about it. Okay. The average family can't come close to paying for that. I'm just really pessimistic on the market. Even though Toyota just set an all-time sales record, you're going to have certain manufacturers that outperform the market. And in a crisis where I expect the market to go in 2026, certain manufacturers will take advantage of that crisis and become even stronger, while some manufacturers are going to be hemorrhaging market share. Thank you guys. Stay tuned for more, and catch you in the next one.